Legends, welcome back to the Hellmouth Hotline. I am your host, Rodney Stewart. We're getting into a little bit more horror now in this episode with, mainstream horror. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The Harvest. Brilliant little show. If you're a Buffy fan, I hope you enjoy these episodes. I'm enjoying doing them for you guys. So, yes, as always, if you want to check out my social media links, they're in the show notes. And please feel free to drop the show an email at hellmouthhotline@gmail.com. I would love to hear any feedback you have in this show and any ways that I can do it better for you. That's the key to it, guys. You know, constructive feedback is just what I need in the early days of this podcast, so feel free to do it. And yes, sit back and enjoy the podcast. In the last episode, we left off. Buffy has been attacked by Luke. He had her, he had the upper hand, had her pinned down. He was ready to get in for the bite at the end of the episode. So we opened there, and I was wondering how the heck she's going to get out of this. As someone, because she is easily overmatched by Luke in this first confrontation. But as he goes down in for the bite, he burns himself on the cross, the necklace and the cross that Angel gave Buffy in episode 1. So, burns himself on the cross, jumps up, runs away. Buffy is free to go out. At this point, there are vampires attacking Xander, Willow and Jesse, and Buffy manages to fight off the rest of the vampires, saves Willow and Xander. Unfortunately, Jesse is taken by the vampires. So we get into the opening credits of the episode itself. The song by Nerf Herder, brilliant, love that so much. We open up on the library, and Giles is giving the speech about vampires and what they are, their origins, and it's basically someone dies, the demon takes over the body and all that stuff. So we get to see more of the Master in this episode, and the thing about the Master is the wonderful thing about the writing of this series is you've got the main villain of each series who's evil to the back teeth, but there's something about them that you kind of like as well. They're not, don't get me wrong, they're 100% evil, but there's something about them that you just really like to watch about them. And the Master in this series is absolutely brilliant because he is a master vampire. He is evil to the back teeth, but he does have a sense of humour, and every once in a while he'll bring the sense of humour to the surface and just prove himself as a great counterbalance to the heroes of the series. So the vampires return to the Master. Obviously he's been waiting for a whole load of teenagers to be brought back as food, as sacrifices to him, but there's only Jesse that's been brought back by them. And the Master is told about this girl that Luke had just fought, and she's strong, she's got power, sort of thing. So the Master works out she's a Slayer, and he decides, right, I'm not going to kill Jesse, I'm going to use him as bait. So again, we're back into Giles with the Scooby Gang, as they become known in the series, and they're working out what they're going to do because Jesse's been taken, and Willow finds her place in this episode as the computer genius that does the research along with Giles, and Buffy works out what happened in the fight, why Luke got the upper hand over in episode 1, because they're inside this crypt. There's only one entrance to it, but she figures out that Luke came from behind her, so she reckons the entrance to their lair is within this crypt. So Buffy goes off to try and find Jesse, and it ends up Xander follows her. They get down into the sewers looking for Jesse. They eventually find him. He's chained up. They're trying to get him out of the lair to save him, and you know, they think they're home free, and then boom, the first twist that came in this series, because episode 1 opened up the introduction to the characters, and you got Xander and Willow, Cordelia, you meet Angel, you meet Giles, you meet all the main central characters, and Jesse was introduced as one of these here. But in this episode you discover that he's not just been used as bait, but he's actually been turned to a vampire as well. So yes, there is a sequence in there too where again she meets Angel, and in this series, episode 1, Angel is kind of the guy that turns up and gives her warnings and then disappears off again. But in the first few episodes, Angel comes off as a very smug character that when I was first watching it, I didn't like Angel so much in this series, although later on he becomes a major character within the series and actually ends up getting a spin-off series of his own. So, you know, in the early episodes, and you know, obviously season 1, they're fleshing out the characters, what they're going to come. They've got an idea where they're going, but in how the character is portrayed and whatnot, they're just, you know, you can see the progression of the characters as they change them about a little bit as they go on. But you get to see the two-sidedness of Cordelia's character in this series as well. She's like, there's a sequence in it where she's slagging off Buffy to her friends. Willow's hearing this, and Willow's trying to stick up for Buffy and whatnot. And it's just you know, it's just more or less fleshing out that character. But again, as I said in the last video, Cordelia was very, very wasted in this series, if I remember right. Like, I'm reviewing these as I go and as I'm seeing them. It's just coming back to me. But in the early parts of this series, and I think the better part of the series, Cordelia, compared to the character that she becomes, is really, really wasted on this series. But anyway, we get back into the fight in the sewers. Buffy and Xander have been cornered by all the vampires because of Jesse, and like eventually they do escape. But then again, you see the Master's dark humour in this episode where he's raging that they got away, and there's a section where the camera pans out over the shoulder of an vampire, and the Master is like, "What's that there?" And he just goes past the camera, like, and you hear the impact of it, and he's like, "You've got something in your eye." And that's little humour. Like, it's dark humour, but it's just the way the Master, the actor that plays the Master in the series, forgive me, no idea what his name is at this point. I should really have researched that, but plays him incredibly well, and he does pop up throughout the series as different characters, and you know, cameos on and off as the Master. The idea of the harvest, the title of the episode, is that the Master on this date can infuse his own powers with another vampire, in this case Luke, who can go out and, you know, feed on humans, and instead of Luke getting the energy, the good of the blood, that automatically transfers over to the Master. So as we learned in episode 1 of the series, the Master is trapped within a psychic bubble in the sewers. He can't get out. But if this harvest is a success and Luke can drain enough or kill enough people, it'll give the Master the strength to break out of this psychic bubble. But it can only happen on this one night. So they perform the ritual. Luke gets the powers, off he goes, and Giles, as in every episode in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Giles is in these books researching. He's got Willow on the internet researching and whatnot, and he's worked out that this night is the harvest. And he discovers that there's this symbol that within the ritual to give Luke these powers is drawn on his forehead. So Buffy's like, okay, I find the vampire of that, dust him, you know, plan foiled. So the vampires attack the only place in Sunnydale that is haven with teenagers, and that is the Bronze. So we're back in there again. The vampires attack. Buffy along with Giles, Xander and Willow come to try and save everyone and stop this. So Buffy goes in again, confronts Luke, and we already know from the previous battle she's very much outnumbered in this fight, or not outnumbered, outclassed in this fight, or at least she was the first time around. So while she's fighting him, and at this point Luke's already drained like 10 people maybe, and the Master's getting stronger and stronger, and you can see him keeps cutting back to the Master in the sewers, and he's trying to penetrate this bubble to get out of it. So Buffy's fighting the fight with him. Xander, Giles and Willow's trying to get everyone out of the Bronze. Start having a bit of success with that, getting people out, but then it goes back to, and again episode 1 and this episode kind of mirrors the original film in places. There was the two characters in the main movie were best friends. One of them became a vampire, and then they were, you know, there was a point where the one that wasn't a vampire was trying to talk sense to the vampire. You know, there has to be some of you in there. You know, you can't be fully gone. You know, you're my best mate, sort of thing. So that happens in this episode too, between Xander and Jesse. And Xander doesn't want to. He's got a stake up to Jesse's chest. He doesn't want to stake him because he's his best friend at the end of the day. But you know, in the push for the crowds to get out of the place, somebody knocks against the back of Jesse and knocks him into Xander, and the stake is in, poof, and the dust. So you know, there's a little bit of heartbreak in the first 2 episodes for all the main characters in some shape or form, and you know, it's an early building process to the character that Xander's going to become eventually, and it's a good episode. It's a very good episode. The way Buffy wins the fight with Luke is a little bit of genius, because she kind of plays on the vampire's fears to get him. She tricks him into thinking that it's day, it's sunrise, as she breaks a window behind him, but it's you know, it's a light outside in the street shining through, and while Luke is disorientated because of this, Buffy takes her chance, kills him. Now I know I'm kind of just giving away the entire episode for you here, but it's worth a watch. It's one thing me telling you about the episode, but to actually sit down and watch it. And when this series started on television, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but in the UK, Northern Ireland, where I live at the time of the night that this series was first shown, it was a little bit more racy than what we were used to back in the early 90s, and it was always family orientated fun. We did have science fiction on TV, but it was light stuff. We would have had like Star Trek and all that sort of stuff, and you would have had alien beings and whatnot, and there was a certain amount of things that were scary in some of the Star Trek episodes, but there's nothing that was close to what Buffy the Vampire Slayer was. And you've seen people actually getting bitten by vampires, and you know, the main character, who is like a really good role model for girls worldwide, but again, it was a main character before the watershed who was actually killing people by stabbing them in the chest. So it was a groundbreaking series as well to be on television. But anyway, once Buffy wins the fight, and you know, the vampires all retreat. Again, we get a glimpse of Angel out in the alleyway, sees the vampires running off, and he's like, she did it, I'll be damned. And he's just like, you know, he had his doubts about her, but she's proven his doubts wrong here. So Next morning, Xander's expecting the whole town to be changed because everybody's seen vampires now. They've seen the supernatural. Things is never going to be the same. But they go to school the next morning, everything's just the same as normal, and you hear Cordelia gossiping away with her friends, and she's like, I couldn't believe it. I think it was rival gang members fighting over something and whatnot, and it's kind of like rationalizing what you couldn't understand. And and Giles echoes that. He says people have got a way of rationalizing what they don't understand and forgetting what they can't understand, sort of thing. So that's the sort of thing where this stuff has happened and people just, they would rather forget about it than actually confront it. So the episode closes up there. Buffy and everyone's like, they have their big deep conversation with Giles and whatnot. He says vampires is just the start, but don't forget we're living on top of a hellmouth here, and it's going to attract everything, werewolves, demons, witches, you name it. It's probably going to happen. So Buffy and Xander Willow head off, and then they start into their little teenage chatter about class and girlfriends, boyfriends, all that sort of stuff. And it closes off with Giles walking away, and he says to himself, we're doomed. So it's light-hearted. The series has got a serious side to it. The storytelling to it is very, very serious indeed, but it does have a light-heartedness to it that it's just a good balance. And unlike the film version of it, where, as I said in the last video, what they were trying to do there, they got right in this series. And the first 2 episodes on their own make up for what the movie was. Now don't get me wrong, the movie is in no way a really, really bad movie. It's not a strong movie. It's worth watching, very entertaining, and not really a waste of your time. But the series one's hand, like, flat out over top of the film. Anyway, that's it. That's the review for this episode. And the next ones, I'm going to try and keep them shorter, guys. I kind of give you a blast for blast account of everything that happened in the episode. And, I don't really want to spoil it for you, like that there, but it's kind of hard to review the series without actually getting into these types of details for it. But definitely, if you've never seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer, couldn't recommend it higher. Definitely go and check it out. If you can get it online streaming somewhere, definitely do that. And if you can't get it and you're interested in this sort of stuff, like the vampires and supernatural stuff and whatnot, go and actually buy the box set itself, because it is genuinely a good buy. It really is a good buy, and it's definitely a series that I like to go back to every once in a while, as in the perspective of an amateur filmmaker myself. You can see the way that it's a good learning experience, a good learning curve, a good learning experience to go back and check out the way some of the effects was done here, because they did do them incredibly well in this series. There's no doubt about that there, but there is bits and pieces in it where you can kind of see the flaws in some of the stuff, and that's what I like to see in these things whenever I go back, and you can see where the way things is done, and that's definitely a really good series to learn some effects, or the origins of how to try some effects on your own on a low budget, because a lot of the effects in this here, although they look amazing and like tons of money wasn't spent on them, some of them are incredibly easy done, and if you watch it properly you'll see it for yourself. This has been a production of Coins Edge Media. Check out my social media links in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening.